But in the meantime, I'm going to be taking the A chair. So get ready for some unapologetic pauses and a lot of fucking me just being dumb. So, boys, I hope you're ready for that because today our episode is all about my favorite, the heavyweights.
You are about to enter a great adventure.
This is Strutting from Gorilla.
What's up, guys? This is another fantastic episode of Strutting from Gorilla. This is episode number 22. We are one man shy of the full crew, the troop, but he is handling some family business. Happy for him, and look forward to the next time Mango lands back on the show. But in the meantime, I'm going to be taking the A chair. So get ready for some unapologetic pauses and a lot of fucking me just being dumb. So, boys, I hope you're ready for that because today our episode is all about my favorite, the heavyweights. And if anybody's been paying attention to us at all this whole week, they will know on TikTok and on Twitter, we've put together some of our favorites leading up to the show. So there shouldn't be any surprises about who we're going to be talking about today. But if there are any surprises, well, there has to be at least one or two, right?
Yeah, and I mean the big thing is too, Bobby Stone, right? Leader of men. If people don't like our opinions, we say this all the time. You know, they can go on Twitter @from_gorilla and let us know about it. You know, let us know about it. Yeah, this is a big episode for us. We have the same handle on TikTok. It's @from_gorilla on TikTok, and you should check it out. We got some good stuff on there. And today, I know we're talking about big men. I know it's Bobby Stone has the big man boner pretty much every time. There isn't a week that goes by that Yokozuna doesn't get mentioned somehow, even in a Bret Hart podcast. So it's true.
All right. So all things being equal, boys, today's episode, we're going to be going through an in-depth investigation into the biggest mystery of them all, right? That is the heavyweights. I got a question. Why the fuck are they so big? That's the question. That's the $1 million question.
Pituitary gland disorders.
Beautiful.
Usually why they're so big.
Yeah, and the funny thing is you get some that are like very big and can coordinate really well. Like, you got the Undertakers of the world. I mean, he's not the biggest big guy, but he's pretty agile. You got the Canes, right? But then you have the guys, Mike, I mean, there's some that are terrible, right?
Yeah, we have our great Khali's. We have our giant Hernandez's. Those guys tend to be the top of the bottom of the list.
Yeah. Oh, terrible. Terrible.
Well, so there was one giant that was bigger
Head and
than
shoulders above the rest. Is that what you would say?
That was.
Hey, I'm here all week.
So, let's talk about them. Let's talk about the French fucking giant of just absolute amazingness, and that is Andre the Giant. So,
oh, that's a good. That's fantastic. No, Andre the Giant. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen the HBO documentary, which is now on, I think the network. But it was pretty good. He was a little bit, but we don't really talk about him a lot. In our, we have. I mean, I know he was on your Mount Rushmore, Mike, and could have been on anybody's. Like, it's fair. It's just for me, I never watched him. He was like right in that era before I really started watching wrestling. And you hear about him, you see the stories, and what's great about Andre is that because he was so big at a time before there was the internet, people would talk about him. They'd be like, have you seen this, like, this mastodon that walks through these different territories? And he would go from territory to territory. Like, he was an attraction at a lot of different places. And he kind of is that guy. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, Mike or Bobby, but he's kind of that guy that, I'm not going to say he was a much better wrestler than Great Khali or anything. Like, he didn't do masterful moves, and he wasn't super agile, but he knew how to work his big guy gimmick better than anybody else. Would you agree or disagree?
I would agree to a point, because I do think that Andre is just leaps and bounds a better worker than Great Khali ever was or could ever wish to be. And so I wouldn't lump his in-ring work with that necessarily. I think if you're watching some of Andre's later stuff, which is like the late 80s into like the 90s, I mean, his body was so broken down, he was so limited, that it makes sense why you'd almost think that. But if I was able to watch during the course of my like research for this episode some of his early matches back in like the mid 70s. Surprisingly, the network has a ton of that, and YouTube is a good resource as well. And I watched some of the matches he had with some of the guys that are on my kind of top 5 list, and the guy was much more agile than I think we give him credit for. Before his body really started breaking down, he had much better range of motion in the ring. He had really great stamina. He was able to sell. You could see it. He was sort of like, he worked that big man gimmick, just like you said, Vio. I agree with you 100%. And part of that was being able to, it's something they describe what Undertaker does, which is like selling on the run, which is like, he's not going to be like kind of a mid-sized guy that's going to be bouncing around, but he was able to sort of make it look like this smaller guy, this other wrestler was kind of breaking him down a little bit and was giving him a little bit of a run for his money. And I think they even talked about this in the HBO documentary.
They did.
But the ability to sort of put a guy over without actually letting him win is an incredible skill to have. And I think, they did a really great job of sort of protecting Andre's like mystique. He was almost mythological the way people spoke about him. It was big. Like, his word of mouth was, have you seen this giant? Have you seen this guy in the ring? He's just dominating these people. There's times in the 70s he's wrestling 2 or 3 guys at a time and just absolutely crushing them. I think if it wasn't for Andre, who I think is probably the best booked giant ever in wrestling, because I don't think any other of the guys that we list had good periods of time, but overall were never really booked the way Andre was and protected the way Andre was. I think if it wasn't for him, maybe we wouldn't have this list going on. We wouldn't be recording this episode.
Yeah, I just want to add 2 things. We could honestly spend a full episode. I think we talked about this before on Andre. So I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but there's just 2 things that I want to cover, Bobby, before you give your thoughts. First of all, Andre the Giant, rumor has it that he has the world record for the largest fart ever ripped. That was 2 minutes plus long during his production of the Princess. Princess Bride. Yeah. Like 2 minutes long. Like, first of all, you do like a 10-second one. That's impressive. Like the 2 minutes. That's legendary and mythological stuff. So I get that. Second thing is, the fact that Andre came along and he was this great talent, I think, unfortunately, makes Vince McMahon think that he can make every big guy a big guy. You know what I'm trying to say? He thinks that, all of a sudden, oh, you're a big guy. You're being used wrong, because I had Andre the Giant and I knew what I was doing. And I don't know that he's really worked a lot of big guys since then as good as Andre. And I think a lot of it was just Andre being Andre. Okay. And then the last thing I'll say is, this goes along with today too. If you think about Andre's size, okay, and you look at the guys today that travel, back then, their accommodations were not as easy as they are today. And today they're not easy. So like Andre getting on a plane, Andre going into restaurants, Andre going everywhere, he was recognized. And like, I can only imagine, like they talk about in the documentary, the toll that takes on you. He has no time to breathe. And when he does, he has to, go on an airplane and barely fit. And he's traveling. Back then, the schedule, he's going international. Like, think about that. Like, being a big guy in this type of industry, it's not like you're catered to all that well. So I think that led to a lot of his issues in his later parts of his life with his health too.
So, Vito, one of the first things I'll mention as you were talking about some of those really uncomforting commutes to whether he was going to Japan or flying from New York, doing a show at Madison. Next thing you know, he's flying to New York the next day or the 2 days after. To start off those flights, he would actually give himself an enema the night before because he couldn't fit into the bathroom.
Yeah.
Right. So
that's awful.
Yeah, that's terrible. And they also told stories of how they sometimes, if he had to go in the on the plane, they would literally he'd have to go in a bucket and people would hold up a curtain, because he couldn't fit. No, so that's a fair point, Bobby.
So he knew that the eyes were on him and at all times. Like, that was the beauty of it. Like, he probably is, you hear it. Vince obviously speaks very highly of Andre. There's a reason for it, right? So one of the things that we were talking about on previous episodes is that wrestling is the modern day circus, right? Because it's the truth.
It is.
And this is, a part of the act. This is all a part of the show where you have, the bearded ladies or the fucking giants or whatever. But Andre, to Mike's point, was booked in such a way continuously that he was just fantastic in the ring on his early years. And then in the 80s, as his body was in fact breaking down, that's where Vince McMahon, Vincent Kennedy McMahon, started really promoting him. And that's where he took off in a new light, which no other wrestlers were doing. He opened up the door for the Hulk Hogan's, the Rocks, the John Cena's, to take your wrestling career and amplify it into a completely different stratosphere, and be recognized in multiple ways to market the company, to market yourself, so he was marketed perfectly. And God damn it, he was 7 foot, 500 pounds, I believe. 7'4", 500.
Yeah, and still growing. Realistically, like, his body wasn't done. Like, I remember them talking about it in the documentary. Like,
he just kept getting bigger.
Yeah, and that was half the problem, right? His heart kept growing, and like basically every part of his body kept growing.
Yeah, I would love for us to be able one day to sit down with Tim White, who was really close friends with Andre, because from everything you hear from that documentary, it just sounds like Andre is really very much a tragedy in the way that he just sort of resigned himself to the medical condition he had. Later on, if you guys ever watched the Big Show documentary, he had the same pituitary gland issue that Andre had, except he got treatment for it. And you just wonder what could have happened if Andre felt a bit more inclined to take care of himself that way. I think, really, and we see this with wrestlers all the time. One of the dangers of the whole life is the self-medication. And I think for Andre, that was the beer and the wine. I mean, we talk about it and we kind of laugh, like he drank like so much, but really he was in so much pain all the time towards the end that it was just, it was a miserable existence for the guy to be living in. And Bobby, I think part of what you're saying is true later on in the way, he couldn't really perform much in the ring. So Vince tried to, I think, protect him as much as he could by, just promoting the mystique of Andre the Giant rather than even having him in the matches, and it was scarce. But at the same time, like, you kind of look back on it, and even so, when you watch him in the ring, you think to yourself, wow, I kind of wonder if he should have even been there. There's some matches that he has later on. I think there's one match with Jake. He wrestles Jake Roberts. And if you watch, like, Andre almost never leaves the ropes. He's sort of just working himself around the ring. And it's like awful to watch, man. It's like sad to see somebody with that limited mobility. You know, we talk about the Undertaker, right? And how towards the end we were like, why is he in the ring? I kind of felt that way watching that match. I was like, holy shit, why was he there? You know? Yeah. And I think that documentary sheds a little bit of light on that he felt pressured to do that. So despite Vince protecting him, I think there's a little bit more so happening where Vince also wanted to, you know, monetize having him out there.
Of course.
And I think that pushed Andre beyond some limits that it should have. That's just me.
No, you're right.
You know, one of the things that you were talking about was mystique, right? And how he was protected, and that mystique organically came to be. You know, that was lightning in a bottle. Mm-hmm. Well, they figured out a way to do it twice. And that was, we have a whole episode on The Undertaker, and we could go into our top five. Yeah. Guys, are you good with jumping to the top five?
Yeah. Before we do that, though, I just want to ask you guys a question. Like, what is it about the big guys? Because here's my issue, right? I am like you, Bobby Stone. I feel like every guy that I enjoyed as a kid was always this larger than life personality. And there's kind of two ways you can look at it, right? You have these big guys that are like really fat and huge, like Yokozuna. You have these giant guys that are like tall and huge and larger than life. They're almost like, I don't want to say this in a bad way, but it's almost like a little bit of a freak show, right? But what makes these guys even more unique is you have these guys in a ring performing athletic feats that, you know, they're not going to be in the NFL. They're not going to be in you know, MLB or in the NBA. The problem I have with some of these big guys is sometimes and I think we'll talk about this a little bit when we talk about our top guys, but like, the problem I have is that it's always the same thing, right? Like, and that's what bugs me. Like, Braun Strowman comes in, Big Show comes in, Kane comes in, these guys, and it's the same gimmick where it's like, they're going to come in and squash these dudes. Like, look at Goldberg and look at Ryback. Are they big guys? Probably not by the standard that we're talking about today, but like, it's the same concept. And like, at some point they come in as this like unbeatable force, and they like then all of a sudden they become human again. And then it's that tipping point that I think we really see who the guys can really go outside their comfort zone, right? And so my question to you, I know that was a lot before I got to my question here, but my question to you guys is like, what is it to you that, you know, categorizes a big guy? Is it like their persona? Is it their size? Is it their weight? I mean, I guess, you know, we could talk about it when we talk about the top five, but like, just off the top of your head, like, what is it about them?
To me, the first thing that comes to mind is it's not necessarily the personality, because anybody could have a big personality, but you know, Crash Holly had a big personality, but he's not a big guy, you know?
Don't tell him that.
He weighed 400 pounds, according to him.
Well, I know. Trust me. This is why I brought him up. But for me, it's coming down to like stats. So for me, the qualifications, you know, and this is kind of like an estimate, but for me, it's like either your weight has got to be over, you know, 350, 400, and or your height is over 6'6". I think that's kind of, for me, what classifies traditionally as a big guy. That's and really, I know it's like a boring answer, but that's kind of the way I looked at it.
So if you were to look at the specs of a big fella, I like Mike kind of took the 6 foot and above as the benchmark on the height, and then the weight was anything 350 to 400 plus, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But that was just strictly on the specs. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're asking me what I enjoyed about the big men, What I loved really was the guys who could, in fact, be the 6'8", the 6'7", the 300 pluses, and fucking move.
Mhm.
Like, so some of the, football players, right? Some of the best football players don't get enough recognition because they're down in the trenches. You're talking about 6'8" linemen that move fucking mountains, right? But some of the ones that, as they've gotten better over the years, it's because they're quick and they can just fucking swallow quarterbacks and linemen at the same time. When you have paws coming over the line and just breaking somebody down, that to me, like your core, whether it's I'm sorry, I went on a football tangent here, but your core at the beginning of the game really needs to be at that line. If you have a shit line, you're gonna have a shit team, right? So in the circus, if you don't have the big men draw, well, what else are you going to put out there? You could put out some of the best athletic guys out there who could put on some fantastic shows, but there still needs to be another. And this was Vince's edge. The edge to Vince was, how do I put these big guys over? Because I could put out some great wrestlers. And then, the times obviously shifted, and we've talked about the new generation era and how the dynamic completely shifted. But during the 70s and 80s, it was just big guys kind of moving. But then you had like the Bob Backlunds of the world, who was still fucking equally great, right? So, I was long-winded, and I don't even know if I answered your.
No, you kind of did. No, you did. But I
In a
think
way.
I think that was a really good point, though. Like, I think when we go through this top five, which we can get to in a second here, I think it's really unique. Like, I mentioned this like tipping point, right, where it's like, yeah, anyone can have this look, okay, and we're going to talk about some not so top 10 big men that just didn't pan out, but there's reasons they didn't pan out, and I think you can look at each case and be a little bit different in how they worked out. But I agree with you guys. I think it has to be someone that's a larger than life look, that kind of has that almost like, I'm not going to call it superhero, but like circus look, like where it's
like
you
an
don't see
attraction. It's
an attraction. That's exactly what it is. But then there are some guys that can take that to the next level rather than just be that attraction and be that name on a card and that draw. So I think we should get into this.
So I know we were talking top five.
Yeah.
But our top fives are going to be the headliners of the card. So you've got your headliners,
Maybe.
You've got your
Maybe.
You've got your mid card, and then you've got the fucking jobbers.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I'd be very curious as to what we're talking about, the difference, like who gets missed in our headliners, because I know there's going to be some mid carders that are out there as well. So
yeah, and this list is not going to be definitive. I mean, there's going to be people we look over. That's just the way these things go. Because there's people that personally I didn't really like, so they didn't make my list. So you know how opinionated I fucking am. I'm not, if I don't really like someone, screw them.
And let's be honest. Let's keep Andre off the list if you have him on there, because I think you could I think he could speak for himself. I think he's kind of that like echelon of big guys.
He's someone where it's not subjective; it's just objective. He's
exactly
the giant.
Yeah. Agreed. To me, Agreed. All right, so let's do this. Who wants to go first? I say we just name them, and then we can kind of pick a couple to talk about afterwards. So just name the five. You don't have to do it in any particular order, right? Just name the five, and then we'll go through and like maybe pick a couple. Maybe we might have some that are the same, maybe we won't, and we'll go from there. I mean, I might as well just no. I always start us off. Someone else starts us off.
Yeah,
Mikey, go like first. I want to close it. Be to go in the middle.
All right, so. Okay, here we go. I'll give mine. My top five are in no particular order: Bam Bam Bigelow, Big John Studd, One Man Gang, Ernie Ladd, and this controversial one, Rikishi.
Okay, fair.
All right. Well, Vito, it's you.
Yep. Okay.
I'm really excited, but I'm gonna close it.
All right, that's fine. Okay, so mine in no particular order here. Bam Bam Bigelow, Vader, The Big Show, Yokozuna, and Bruiser Brody is going to be on there. And he's kind of I don't know that he had the big guy look, but I want to talk about him. So there's a reason why I have him on here.
So you're just making up rules as you go along.
No, he's on there. If you're thinking of a big guy, he's not this big fat guy, and he's not this giant 7 foot guy, but he wrestles big, and that's what I'm going to talk about. So
we'll allow it.
So, the list of my favorites, I'm sure the lead-in is not going to be a surprise to any. Yokozuna.
Get out of here. No way.
What?
Whoa, shocker.
I thought for sure you were going to say Bastion Booger.
Undertaker, Hulk Hogan, King Kong Bundy, and Earthquake.
Earthquake's a good one.
Solid.
Those would be my 5. And then I do have a couple of honorable mentions. I'm taking the role of Vito today.
That's fine.
I'll
allow it.
Gorilla Monsoon, Hillbilly Jim, the Funkasaurus, Brodus Clay, and
the Funkadactyls.
I thought this guy was just folklore, but apparently he was a wrestler as well, and that is Paul Bunyan.
AKA the guy on the brawny paper towels.
That's right. So those are, I mean, I really, we only had a couple that were very similar. You know what I mean? I want to pull out one to talk about first. Again, I think we could have a whole episode on Yokozuna. So we'll get to him. But the one guy, and I'm going to tell you right now, he's going to be number 1 on my list as the big guy. And that's Bam Bam Bigelow. And he doesn't get enough credit, man. The guy wrestled in pretty much every promotion. Okay. I don't know how many times I'll be honest. I don't know how many times he was champion in every promotion. I'm not sure he was ever
world champion. He never won the WWF title.
He won WCW though, and ECW. I'm pretty sure.
Well, hold on.
Like, regardless. Yeah, you can look that up, but let me talk about why I like this guy. Okay. This guy, okay, was as agile as they get for a big man. This guy could do pretty much everything. He had that nasty freaking look, the bald head with the tattoos over his over on his skull. He wrestled like a big guy. He had the look of a big guy and wrestled with a small guy persona. Unfortunately, he passed away early as well, like a lot of these bigger guys have had the tragedy of doing. But I think he's my number 1, and he's probably underrated as the number 1. But
I can't believe that I agree with you. I actually loved Bam Bam Bigelow. I thought he was, like you just said, I thought he was he's criminally underrated because he was a guy that could work big and also work small. Like he was really agile. And I was actually just watching his ECW matches with Taz this morning, and they're so great. I mean, they're sloppy as fuck, but that's like a ECW match in general.
Yeah.
But like they had great chemistry together, and it just showed. And this is in 1998, towards the tail end of Bam Bam's career, and he's still working he was working with sort of a hardcore classic. I thought it was really cool. And
he was on WrestleMania with LT. Did he face LT?
Yeah, he wrestled Lawrence Taylor, and it's actually a good match. I hadn't revisited that match in years, and then I watched it again, and I was pleasantly surprised for him and LT, by the way. And to follow up on your championship stats here, Vito, he never won the championship in WWF. He never won a damn thing. He won a Slammy Award, and he won best head 1987 with Gene Okerlund, and I have no idea what that means. I don't really want to know.
Hey, listen, as a bald guy, he's got a good dome. Like, you can not every bald guy can pull off the look.
He
got a good
won
dome.
the WCW Hardcore Championship, and he won the WCW Tag Team Championships.
He
won that twice, but he's never really won anything else. He was a one-time ECW champion.
I knew
he won the World Television and the World Heavyweight Championship.
Yeah, I knew he was ECW.
So there was another. Do you remember the Lance by Chance?
Yes.
World Class Championship Wrestling.
Yes.
Bam Bam held their television title.
That is true.
Okay. Yep.
It is here.
So I'm gonna backtrack us for a second, only for one major reason. One, did any of us have Vader on our list?
Yeah, I had Vader. And
okay.
So here's the thing about Vader. I'm actually reading.
Whoa!
All right.
I just asked a question.
All right. I wanted to give a plug here to Kenny Casanova, who wrote the book, who's also friends with our Lance by Chance author, Vinny Berry. That's all. It's a
beautiful.
Good book.
Beautiful. There was a reason why I was asking about Vader, because for as many, kind of moonsaults that Bam Bam did, Vader did it better.
I'm going to disagree with you. I'm going to disagree with you on that, because Vader, and what is the weight? Let's go to Bobby Stone Excel sheet here. I'd like to know the height and weight of both Bam Bam Bigelow and Vader. Vader's 6'5", 450, and Bam Bam 6'4", 400. Okay, now are these legit stats, or are these like the Crash Hall
WWE stats?
Yeah, so because if I'm doing the litness look test, I feel like Bam Bam Bigelow was a bigger guy, but that's just me. Maybe I'm wrong. So
no, he was surprisingly, he was a big guy, no doubt about it. But he was, and that's where the agility kicked in, and that's why to me Vader was just a little more surprisingly athletic.
Yeah.
I loved them both, and this can be kind of that tail of the tape type thing. I loved Bam Bam. The simple fact that he took a Flintstone character and gave it fire was fucking fantastic. So, it was he was actually with Vader as a tag team title holder. IWGP.
What would be a fantastic
in Japan?
Fantastic tag team. Like that tag team would be unreal.
So that was back in '92.
Yeah, and I think they wrestled each other in Japan.
Yeah, I could see that. I think
I'm looking it up now, and I think it's like in 1988 or something like that. So it was probably a good match.
So this was from '92 to from March '92 to June '92. They were tag team champions together. So,
nice.
Bobby, that's a really good comparison, though. I mean, I would put those two in the same exact category, though. Like, I just think they're both big guys that were super agile.
I loved them both. Mm-hmm. I just had to play the other side of it because both you went one way. I loved them both, man. They were
I do. I'm with you on that. I think
Bam Bam. Oh, I'm sorry. Bam Bam had a great match with Bret Hart. That's all I wanted to get out.
No, he did.
In the King of the Ring. Go ahead, Mikey.
I was going to talk about Vader for a second because I think we've been texting about this before the episode, and I think we were sort of trying to figure out if any of us was shitting on Vader at one point or another in a previous episode. I think we were talking about Hall of Fame, and I do. It's not that I don't think Vader's a Hall of Famer. I just think his WWF run was like kind of bad.
He was a mid-carder for
sure. All of his stuff up until then was really good. Like you could watch, like he has, there's a series of matches that he had with Sting in WCW, and there's a wrestling podcast out there called Work of Wrestling by Tim Kale, and I would recommend you check that out, because in that episode he sort of gives like a deep dive into that sort of rivalry and looking at just how great those matches were between Vader and Sting in general. But I think that's just an example of Vader being very good in the ring, and obviously his matches with Cactus Jack too, and all of the stuff that Vader did in Japan. I mean, hell, he got his eye knocked out a socket and put it back in. I mean, this dude was a badass. It just so happened that he had like a shoulder injury, and then he was like getting told he was coming back earlier and he didn't have time to recover. So, I mean, he was working with a bum shoulder the whole time. So, I don't completely blame him too much for it.
You guys really need to check out that book. I know that's kind of going to be on our list, but that Vader book is pretty good. So I was lukewarm on Vader before, to be honest with you. I mean, I always thought he was a good big guy. I just never thought he was the greatest wrestler of all time. Like, that's just my opinion. But like, the more I thought about it, and like I've read this book, I'm kind of at the early stages of his life and beginning of his wrestling career. It's very interesting though. And I'm not going to spend more time on it because I think we can do this another time. But there's one thing that parallels with our Lance Von Erich talk. Okay. And Vinny did a fantastic job kind of explaining the World-Class Championship Wrestling. And this book also talks about that too, because the one key component that I see in this is Bruiser Brody. So I want to just touch on this real quick, and then we can get into some of your guys. But
I want to talk about Vader.
You want to keep going with Vader? Okay, we can keep going with Vader. That's fine.
Well, do you want to talk about him wrestling Mr. Feeney on Boy Meets World? Because
that's a great point, actually. He was Frankie's dad.
I'm absolutely ready to talk about Bruiser Brody as well, because I think, to your point, Vito, there's going to be some really great groundwork to lay in. But I do want to get one thing out before we shoot Vader out, because he was completely underutilized in the WWF. It was, quite frankly, a goddamn shame, and that is because of your buddy on the other side, Vito, with Shawn Michaels. The guy didn't want to apparently wash his tights or whatever, some other bullshit, whatever. Vader was phenomenal.
I'm not
in WCW, and no, in WCW he was fantastic. So,
three-time champion.
That Halloween Havoc match with Cactus Jack I've brought up before because I think it's one of the best matches I've ever seen. I don't know why. It always rung out to me. But Vader is the very first big man to do a moonsault. Very first. And that's why anybody else doing some funky shit from the top rope after that, it's because this man had the balls to do it. Yeah. So I want to talk about the Mastodon mask that he came up with in WCW, because this thing was legit fire. It spit out smoke, for Christ's sakes. It was scary cool, but there was a whole story behind it where it's because of Samurai Tale, where the whole Mastodon mask was named after this samurai story, where two soldiers would go out and dispute, go to an island, and then fight each other to death, and only one would come back. And that was, a little more of his Japan, New Japan Foundation and his, that mask right there, Vito, is just straight fire. Like, I can't wait. I'll be reading that book with you, for sure. I'm looking forward to that one. So as you, I wanted to tell that part of the story first. So Vito, lay it out with Bruiser Brody.
Yeah, so here's the thing. Like, the one thing you don't know about Vader, and again, I think we can do a podcast on him too, but the book is really good. So Vader was a huge football guy, and he got screwed in college. He had a knee injury, and they gave him a cortisone shot, which they weren't supposed to do, into his tendon, and he blew out his knee. Got a shot in the NFL, and he was in the Super Bowl and his first start ever. but lost. I think he was on the Rams, and ended up like obviously somehow magically getting into wrestling like everyone else. There's no rhyme or reason behind it. He didn't have connections and started out very green. And the guy that the guys in the locker room didn't like him. Same concept. This guy is an outsider. He's a football star. People knew who he was. They may not be number one star, but he came across as this green guy that was getting a push, and old school wrestlers that are scraping to get money didn't like it. They're taking his spot. And he wasn't great at the beginning. So they used to, no one would wrestle with them. And so the promoter really wanted to push him. So they threw him in with Bruiser Brody. Now, go back to the Lance by Chance book, and Bruiser Brody was the guy there. And he had this mentality of like, I don't really give a shit about you. And actually, Bruiser Brody and Vader got in a huge scuffle. Day one. When you read the book, you'll read all about it. But Vader used to get the absolute shit kicked out of him. He would come home and have to wrestle, and they'd put him on the card with Bruiser Brody on a daily basis. And he was as stiff as could be with Vader, because Vader was stiff back at him because he was so green. And Vader would literally say, he's like, I would ice up every single day. There was a point where Vader was in a main event at a big, I can't remember the show, and he was going against Bruiser Brody, and Vader was starting to gain momentum at this point, and he was having a baby, and he was literally in the emergency room in his gear to go to this show, and the promoter's calling him saying, I need you here. They finally had the baby. He's had no sleep. He gets into the arena, and at this point he's gaining a little bit of respect, but not much. And he goes to Bruiser. He's like, hey, I got a match with you tonight. I'm going to tell you, I got to go home. I got to hold my baby. Like, can we please go a little bit easy on me today? And Bruiser's like, no problem. I'll take care of it. And then what does he do? Beats the ever-living shit out of him. So my point with this story is, like, we talk about this all the time. That stuff does not happen today. And you can agree with it or disagree with it, but it created a time of wrestlers that I think we all respect, because they have that respect factor for each other. So Bruiser Brody, I think, is a key to a lot of these wrestlers at that time, because he was so well respected. He had great psychology in the ring, all these different things. And like, I want to point that out because I think he has the key to it. And again, there might be other wrestlers out there too that have that same story with Bruiser Brody, but he was a big guy, and he was stiff as shit, and he beat the shit out of someone, and it turned them into better wrestlers. But then he would also, if you took that beating, he had respect for you. And then he would tell you, like, I'll make you look good, but like, you gotta show me the respect, especially being someone who hasn't really earned their dues in the wrestling world that was getting a push.
Well, I think that's probably, I think what you're touching on is also a topic for another one of our podcasts at some point. Sure. We started talking about the culture back then. But yeah, as far as Brody's concerned, he's had a massive influence on the business. And I think people should check out his Dark Side of the Ring episode, because I think it sheds more light on Brody the person and not necessarily Brody just the businessman and, like you mentioned, kind of the asshole backstage.
That's basically what he was.
He was essentially like the gatekeeper at the time.
That's exactly,
like very much, I think, in line with in I think a less violent way, like the Undertaker, so the locker room guy that you got to get some respect from if you're going to make it in that company. So with wherever Brody was at the time, whether it was World Class or Japan, I think he was held in that kind of regard. And I think Brody's for me, like, an honorable mention, because, like, he's not traditionally what we would consider a giant, but big guy, agile as fuck. He was great. He was able to be brutal when he needed to be. He could work big. He was I think a complete package.
I mean,
absolutely.
6'8", 300 pounds. It hits the specs on both sides.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
was he really 6'8"? That's the question.
Yeah.
So where we're approaching time.
Yeah.
When we're certainly not there yet, but there's still a couple of things that we wanted to
Yeah,
cover.
let's move along to some of the other guys you mentioned too. Like, let's quickly, like, 1 minute synopsis on some of these people here. You know, like, I mean, Yokozuna, I know, is a big one for you, Bobby. So let's give it some time.
Yeah.
Talk about your man Yoko. Like, I think we need to give him his due.
Well,
This won't be a minute.
well, that's just it. I mean, we were talking about doing a different show. We were talking about maybe even giving him his own show. So
we can. Yeah, I definitely think we should. But I think you need to talk about him on here too. Like, you have so much passion for that man.
I do. There's a reason for it, man. The guy was honestly one of the most agile big men that ever hit that stage. He truly was. He was quick. He wasn't always 500 pounds, for Christ's sakes. He built up to that point. In his earlier years, gentlemen, if you haven't watched it yet, watch the Icon documentary of Yoko. It is
I cried.
Really good.
Top to bottom. Yeah, it's top to bottom. Fantastic and also sad. I mean, you know, every story is different, but this certainly was pretty sad. But during the key times of the new generation era, he was body slammed on the USS Intrepid by Lex Luger. I know we've talked about that a couple of times.
Who could forget?
But
I'm pretty sure Lex Luger. What was the phrase that you used? Beat the bag out of him on the USS Intrepid.
I think I also hinted at the fact that he probably sniffed the line before he got off that helicopter as well. So, and I stand by that statement. That man looks all sorts of jacked up. Yeah. But easily one of the coolest finishers that ever came out was the bonsai drop, because so Earthquake did something similar in the middle of the ring, but I loved how he would just give you a super kick or that belly to belly suplex, and then drag your deformed fucking body to the end as if you weren't dead enough. He was gonna go to the middle rope and just drop right on you, right? And in the search of trying to get to that absolute finisher, if you recall, and Mikey, you brought him up, his cousin, Rikishi Fatu, he actually came up with the bonsai drop for Yoko. So it was just a little, you know, it was pretty awesome that Rikishi ended up doing it as well.
Oh, absolutely. And he had every right to. He kind of created it, and Yoko just kind of made it popular. You know, he sort of really made it kind of into wrestling folklore now.
Yeah, and he was such a big influence on other people, not even like just his big man size, but he was just like a good dude backstage. That documentary shed a lot of light on things that you didn't know about with Yokozuna. And, you know, he just did a great job. He was like really the first big guy to be able to carry the torch of the WWF championship and really, like, I mean, do it well. Like, it's not often you get a big heel guy that can pull off what he did. So I agree with all of you on that one. And I think we could probably leave it there. And like I said, we could have a whole episode on Yoko too. Like, we really could.
Without a doubt. And that's where, so we're going to take the non-sumo wrestler, right? And mix him with the actual sumo wrestler.
Yep.
Earthquake.
Yep.
Earthquake was in the mid 80s.
Awesome. Natural disaster.
A fantastic, well, not only was he natural disaster, prior to that, he was in fact a sumo wrestler in Japan from 85 to 87 and did a little bit of damage out there as well. Yep. And then he went to All Japan. And then, I mean, I want to give you one quick stat. He was born at 11 pounds, 3 ounces. This man was destined to be fucking massive, right?
That's big.
But then there was the smaller one with him too. Typhoon. Who was 6'3" and 380.
He was also Tugboat,
the
right?
Smaller one.
He was also Tugboat.
Tugboat,
right?
yep.
Yeah. So the funny thing about Earthquake is his name was John Tenta, right? I believe John Tenta. He was part of the Oddities. I don't know if I mentioned this on a previous podcast, but if you think about the Oddities, they came out to the ICP song, Kurgan, Luna,
Yep.
whatever. He was Golga with the mask on. The guy that came up
I never
with
knew
South
that was
Park
him.
Cartman. That was him. He lost weight. He was over in Japan, came back and lost weight, and or no, WCW didn't like what they were doing with him in WCW and came back, and then that was his kind of last run there. And
I didn't like him as the Shark though. Whatever that Shark thing was, that was fucking terrible too.
No, I mean that gimmick would never go over today. It just never would go over today. But he was a great wrestler. I loved Earthquake, loved Natural Disasters. High five for them.
Yeah.
Mikey, talk about Big John Studd real quick.
I was watching the documentary Giants on the network, and they just sort of go through several of the big men in mainly WWF history. And they mentioned Big John Studd, and he was just like, he just decided he wanted to get into wrestling. He just started, he wanted to be a big guy. And he was just like loading up on food, getting like putting on masks. Like the dude like basically was like taking a page out of Mac's book from Always Sunny. He was just like cultivating masks because he just wanted to be a big guy. Yeah. And he was, I thought I never had too much of an exposure to any of his matches outside of that WrestleMania match against Andre. It was like the body slam match for money. But I started watching some of his other stuff and like some of his earlier matches, and I'm just looking at it for reference. So there's a really cool match with him. It's him in a tag team match with him, King Kong Bundy versus Tony Atlas and Andre, and it's from a Saturday night main event back in '85. And it was
that's like that's almost a ton. That's almost a ton.
Yes,
like
it's
a literal
ton. Like,
weight of.
Think of all the giants in that ring. Like it's really cool.
I don't know how the ring didn't fucking collapse.
I don't know either. It really calls into question how the Big Show and Brock Lesnar broke the ring, but that's a story for another day. So this match actually was surprisingly good. I mean, also I think Tony Atlas needs to be up there too. I mean, he's kind of another honorable mention as like a bigger dude. Shit. I mean, I'm kind of going off on a tangent myself, but now I'm thinking of other honorable mentions, like even Rocky Johnson. He was a big guy.
Right.
But anyway, this match, definitely check it out. It's really cool to see them. This was also is 1985. Andre still has a little bit of mobility here, and he uses it pretty well. But really, Big John Studd is kind of I think the standout of this match. Him and Tony Atlas, especially. Just seeing the athleticism that guy had. But again, for me, my qualifications for a big guy and the things that I look for are the ability to sort of simultaneously be able to work big, but have some athleticism to you. And I think from the list that I had, you could see that a lot of those guys had that, because I would throw One Man Gang in that too. I mean,
yeah, I
was just watching some of his older stuff, and God, he has a couple matches with Bam Bam Bigelow. He fights him at WrestleMania 4. He has a match with Macho Man later on that night, and it's a really good match. He has a match against Brody. It was a tag match with One Man Gang and Maniac Mark Lewin, which we don't need to even mention that guy, but it was like from the World Class days, and him and Brody fight it out, and it's really cool to see. So I'm getting too excited, and I think I'm going off on a tangent. But bottom line,
that's good. Who was the other one you had on there? You had one other one that I.
Ernie Ladd. So Ernie Ladd, I became fascinated with watching that documentary as well. And there was a lot that kind of I think influenced his character. Ernie Ladd actually did come from the NFL. He played 8 years.
Yep.
And I think he played for like the Chargers, the Oilers, and I think maybe the Chiefs before he ended up in pro wrestling. And he was really great at being a heel. I mean, he talks about in his matches that, obviously like kind of using like sort of the racial undertones and a lot of the racial tensions to sort of get heat. He would say like people were sort of dropping N-bombs on him and stuff. And he was like, that's kind of what I wanted. I wanted them to get angry with me. And like, obviously, you think about how that might have resulted, how that would play out today. But at that time, I think for him, he was like, that's the sign that I'm a good heel. And he worked some wild matches. I couldn't find so much on the network, but if people search on YouTube, there's a really good match from these are all like in the 70s, but he had a match at MSG with him against Bruno Sammartino. That was really good. I mean, Bruno worked like a big guy too, but those guys worked really well together. Also a match in 76, Ernie Ladd fought Andre, and talk about old, younger Andre. Both of those guys were in like their early 30s at the time. So it was really cool to watch that match. And I would recommend people check it out just if you want to see Andre sort of more in his prime and Ernie Ladd as well. And also Ernie Ladd versus Dusty Rhodes. I mean, can't go wrong working the American Dream, baby.
No, those are good, man. I listen, I know we're short on time. Before we get to our not top 10, right? We can briefly mention them. There's one guy, well, there's two, right? But one that I want to talk about a little bit that Bobby mentioned on his that we have to talk about. He's like an quintessential big guy, King Kong Bundy, right? Before you talk about him, there is one guy that I want to mention. He has to be mentioned on here. King Mabel, Viscera. Very like an enigma. Like you don't know much about the guy, but he was about as big as they get, as agile as they get. Didn't do much. Kind of was always a mid-carder, but had this weird look. The big guy look to him, and he was good too. But King Kong Bundy, Bobby, give us a little bit about him real quick.
So, what I loved about King Kong Bundy is the fact that he let his presence be the end all, right? So he only wore just a single black a black singlet, right? So there wasn't anything flashy about him. He let the presence kind of be there. He would make referees count to 5 after he beat the shit out of people. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't your traditional 3 count. So that 5 count was kind of his shtick. And off topic, but within topic, he's the reason why the Bundys from Married with Children are, in fact, the Bundys. So the wrestler or the writers there loved them some wrestling. So that is how Al Bundy is, in fact, King Kong Bundy's cousin from another mother. So
that's fun.
So yeah, I mean, I enjoyed him. He had some pretty cool promos. He was fresh with Vince all the time. He was, a part of, another big man that we were talking about. And honestly, Hogan, he may not necessarily be a giant.
He's a big guy.
He's a big fucking dude.
But he gets accolades for other stuff too. So I think with him, you mention him on here again. I think he'll have his own show. You know what I mean? Like,
and I'm perfectly content with that. But they had some good matches. And I
absolutely.
think Giant versus Giant, those were pretty cool. So I think somebody that needs to be quickly mentioned is Gorilla Monsoon. You can't have starting from Gorilla without the Gorilla position.
Without our guy.
Without Gorilla Monsoon. So, he was he was, I looked at some tape on him. He manhandled people, just absolutely destroyed people. And at that point in time, it wasn't so much the gimmick, it was more of the presence. So big up to Gorilla Monsoon. All right.
Yeah. No, those are all good. I think just like to go without talking about them, some people what we didn't hit on that I'm sure people on Twitter will yell at us, and we could go on and on and on. But Psycho Sid, definitely a good one for different reasons. Kevin Nash, Diesel, we didn't really talk about.
Can I tell you a quick factoid that I thought was fantastic?
Yeah.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2.
Yeah, he was the Shredder.
Yeah. He was Super Shredder.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, I knew that. You would never know just because he had the mask on and everything, but yeah, he was. Mm-hmm. So you had him. We mentioned the Big Show, but I think we could lump him into a show on his own because he was like the second coming of Andre, and there's so much that goes behind the Big Show. Like he's been doing it forever and could be one of the best big guys to do it because he's been doing it for so long at the size that he is, some of the athleticism that he has. So we could go on and on with him. and we had Mark Henry. Mark Henry we didn't talk about. Kamala. I'm just trying to name a few, and even some of the new guys. Like we didn't really touch on Big Boss Man, great big guy. We didn't really talk about
Lance Archer.
Yep, Lance Archer. Yeah, huge dude. We did Braun Strowman. Like he has all the potential in the world. Kind of on that same thing as Big Show. Abyss. We didn't talk about Umaga. Umaga was a good one, similar to like a Rikishi.
Yeah.
And listen, there are probably more that we missed.
Vito, what about your ECW guy, Abdullah the Butcher?
Abdullah the Butcher, he is he's mentioned a lot in this too. He is a vicious motherfucker. He is a vicious motherfucker.
He doesn't necessarily get the height of the other guys. He was only 6'1", but the dude was just big and could kick your fucking ass.
Oh yeah,
brutal.
All right, so let's end it here. Real quickly, let's go through our not so top 10. Mikey Cash, lead us off a little bit here.
Okay, so one of the guys in my not top 10 is Brodus Clay, aka Funkasaurus, aka Bobby Stone's honorable mention. And I'm sorry, Bobby, to go against you, but I just thought he was fucking terrible.
That's fair. I liked him. I'm more on the Bobby Stone side here, but we'll take that. Bobby, give us yours. Give us your not so top 10.
All right. Well, I know we're not going to be able to debate this, but I'm going to debate you for a quick second.
Fair.
Brodus Clay was completely underutilized. This was another one of those Vince couldn't deliver on what could have been a good talent. He was quick enough. He was agile enough. But his gimmick, just because it was that gimmick, he had to play it up. And I know they have a little more creative input on it now, but I thought there was more there than what was let on. But my not so top 10 would include fucking Giant Gonzalez to be number one. Adam Bomb is another not so top 10. And who was my third one on the list? It was probably
Nathan Jones.
No, it's not real.
It was Bastion Booger.
Oh, of course, Bastion.
And Haystacks Calhoun. Those were the other two that I needed to make sure got the
okay. All right.
dishonorable mentions.
Fair. Bastion Booger's an easy one. Probably the worst gimmick of all time. Maybe besides the Shocker, which could be a not top 10 because he was a big guy.
Also,
true. Mine is Kurgan. Kurgan the Destroyer. Did not like Kurgan. Thought he was stiff, couldn't wrestle, was a big guy, and actually has been in some good movies. Took his career to a different level. He was in the 100. He was in there. Yep. He was as one of the monsters in there for a little bit. Check it out.
What?
Yeah, he's been in a few
CW show, The 100, or do you mean a different movie?
No, the movie.
You mean 300?
Oh, 300. I'm sorry. Yeah. I got it confused. Yeah, you're right. My bad.
He's just keeping it 100 and telling you to watch the 300.
This is a classic Vito move.
Hey, whoa.
It's vintage Vito.
All right, whatever. Anyways, he's on there and had the worst finisher of all time, which was the claw, and he just grabbed your head. It was so stupid.
Because nobody else would trust him to do any other kind of wrestling move because he was so bad in the ring.
It was stiff as a board. So, anyways, he's on mine, and I'm sure there's a few others we might have missed, but
like no, Great Khali. Let's just make sure to mention how bad Great Khali was.
But the thing about him, he might take the cake because they tried to push him for a long time.
They made him heavyweight champion.
I do not think our fan base in India is going to agree with us on that statement, by the way.
They may not, but whatever work he was doing over in India did not translate when he came to the WWE.
I think the first qualification to be a wrestler is you have to be able to walk, and he struggled with that attribute.
But that's that whole being a giant thing. And again, this is where Vincent Kennedy thinks he can show the world that he's the best at, putting out fantastic giants, but they missed the mark again. Big Khali did some damage. So and then he came in and didn't do damage and became kind of that sophomoric, boring, nothing too great. By the way, I know we talked about Sid Vicious, Psycho Sid earlier. He's absolutely in that mid card, if not potential Hall of Famer. I know there was some discussion back and forth about that, but he was the self-proclaimed ruler of the world.
Mm-hmm.
I
And
am
he
the
had-
ruler of the world.
It was cool.
He
It
had
did
one of
sound
the
cool.
most amazing power bombs. Just flat out, it was. He would lift you almost 10 feet in the air before you came back down,
Mhm.
right? But one last thing about Psycho Sid. He was if you saw on the TikTok, can you smell it? Can you smell the fear? To me, that was the beginning of Can You Smell What the Rock is Cooking?
I mean, that's a reach, but okay, we'll let you have that one because this is your episode today, Bobby.
It is. So I thought this was great. We could keep going, but let's wrap it up. Bobby Stone, send us home, man.
Hey, this was nothing but fantastic all the way. I wanted to. We could play the game a different day, but I will say some network nuggets that we need to get in there. Mike, you mentioning the True Giants documentary on the network. I agree with that 100%. Table for Three. It was a 20-minute quick thing with Kane, Big Show, Mark Henry. They had some really cool stories there. There was a Legends roundtable where Sergeant Slaughter, Mean Gene, Michael Hayes, and JR all talk about their favorite Giants, and it is fantastic to watch. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, Yokozuna, the WWE icons, and one more. There's a WWE countdown. If you want to talk about some of the top 10 that we were just going through, imposing big men, all of which you can find on the network and know what we were talking about this whole show because they had some really cool stuff on them. So
awesome.
Do you? I think that's about it, boys. I am looking forward to next week's episode, which we don't know what that's going to be yet. So we're gonna keep you all in waiting. Until next time, boys.
We now return your perception of reality to you. Until next time.